The town was always alive with chatter, footsteps, and the clattering of horse-drawn carriages, but to Alina it was simply another day of survival. She clutched the worn basket in her hands, balancing the few loaves of bread her mother had baked that morning, hoping someone in the market would buy them. The air smelled faintly of roasted chestnuts and dust, and her thin sandals slapped against the cobblestones as she walked. Alina had known nothing but poverty her whole life. Her father had died when she was just a child, leaving her mother to raise her and her younger brother alone. They lived in a small wooden shack at the edge of town, where the roof leaked during rain and the wind crept through the cracks in the walls. Still, Alina never complained. She was known among the neighbors as the girl with bright eyes and a kind heart, someone who, despite her ragged clothes, always carried a smile. That day, as she hurried to make her deliveries, she noticed a frail old man standing at the edge of the busy street. His gray beard swayed in the breeze as he leaned heavily on a wooden cane. The carriages rushed past, their wheels throwing up dust, and the people around him pushed forward with no time to spare. He took a tentative step forward, then stopped, his hand trembling slightly. For a moment Alina thought someone else might step forward, but no one did. She felt her heart tug. Without thinking twice, she walked over, the bread basket bouncing against her hip, and offered her small hand. "Let me help you, sir," she said softly. The old man looked at her in surprise, as though he had long stopped expecting kindness from strangers. His lips quivered into a smile, and he nodded, allowing her to guide him. Together, they stepped carefully onto the street, her young arm steadying his frail one. The clamor of the town seemed to hush for her, though in reality it never slowed. She focused on each step, ignoring the stares of passers-by who rushed on with their own burdens. At last, they reached the other side safely. The old man let out a shaky laugh of relief and squeezed her hand gently. "Thank you, child," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Alina simply shook her head, brushing it off with a smile. "It's nothing. My mother says if someone needs help, we should always give it." She dipped her head politely, shifted her basket, and hurried on her way, never once realizing that she had just helped Ibrahim, the wealthiest farmer in the region, a man whose vast lands and riches made him both respected and envied. To her, he was only an old man who needed a hand, and that single act of kindness was about to change the course of her life forever. Ibrahim could not forget the girl's face. That night, as he sat in the silence of his vast home, the memory of her steady hand and gentle smile kept returning to him. The mansion was filled with fine furniture, portraits, and heirlooms, yet it felt colder than the night air outside. His children, long grown and scattered, cared more for his wealth than for his company. Letters from them came rarely, and when they did, they were filled with requests for money rather than words of love. For years, Ibrahim had accepted loneliness as the price of success, but the simple kindness of that poor girl had struck a chord in his heart. She had helped him not because of who he was, but because she saw a man in need. That thought warmed him more than any fire ever had. The following morning, he called for his driver and told him to take the carriage into town. For hours, he rode through the streets, scanning faces, searching for the girl who had touched his heart. At first, he wondered if he might never see her again, but then, near the small bakery at the edge of the market, he saw her. She was carrying a heavy sack of flour with her mother, her brow damp with sweat yet her lips curved into a faint smile as she encouraged her mother to keep going. Ibrahim's eyes softened. He stepped down from his carriage, ignoring the curious glances from the townsfolk who rarely saw him among them. Alina noticed him immediately and froze, clutching the sack tightly, her heart thudding. To her, he was the great landowner of whom people spoke in hushed tones, a man so distant from her world that she felt embarrassed by her patched dress and dusty sandals. She bowed her head, wishing to melt away into the crowd. But Ibrahim approached her gently, his cane tapping against the stones. "Child," he said, his voice low but kind, "yesterday you helped me when no one else did." Alina's cheeks flushed. "It was nothing, sir. You needed help, and I was there." Ibrahim chuckled softly, shaking his head. "To you it was nothing. To me, it was everything." He asked her name, and she answered timidly. He asked about her family, and her mother, though hesitant, explained their struggles. Ibrahim listened carefully, each word deepening the ache in his chest. How could it be that he had so much, while this family had so little? He invited them to his farm the following week, insisting they come as his honored guests. At first, Alina's mother refused politely, fearing the hidden intentions of a rich man. But the sincerity in Ibrahim's eyes left no room for doubt. He meant no harm, only gratitude. That night, Alina lay awake, wondering why fate had chosen her for such kindness, never realizing that their meeting was only the beginning of something far greater. The day of the visit arrived, and Alina and her mother set out nervously toward the sprawling farm that everyone in town spoke of. The path wound past golden fields that seemed to stretch endlessly, their stalks swaying like waves under the sunlight. Alina had never seen so much land in her life. Her whole world had been the small market streets and their humble home. When the great farmhouse finally came into view, her breath caught. It stood tall and strong, its white walls gleaming, surrounded by gardens full of roses and fruit trees heavy with ripening fruit. Her mother clutched her hand tightly, as if afraid they would be turned away at any moment, but Ibrahim himself was waiting at the gate. He greeted them not with the stiff politeness of a wealthy man, but with the warmth of someone welcoming family. Inside, the farmhouse was filled with treasures Alina could only dream of, yet Ibrahim never let them feel small. He showed them around proudly, telling stories of how each part of the farm had grown under his care. Then, he led them to a table laid out with food, fresh bread, roasted chicken, fruits of every color. Alina and her mother sat in stunned silence, not used to such abundance. When they finally began to eat, Ibrahim smiled, but in his heart, he was already making plans. He had seen too many greedy faces in his lifetime, people who treated him with false respect because of his wealth. This girl, however, had been different. She had not hesitated to hold his frail hand, not caring who he was. He wanted to do something that would change her life the way she had unknowingly changed his. After the meal, Ibrahim cleared his throat, his eyes soft as they settled on Alina. "My dear child," he said, "you have given me something no riches ever could, kindness without expectation. I wish to give something back." Alina looked at him in confusion, but he continued. "From today, I will take responsibility for your education. You will go to the best school, and all expenses will be mine. And your mother, she shall never worry about work again. She will have a place here, with steady wages and comfort." For a moment, silence hung heavy in the room. Then Alina's mother's eyes brimmed with tears, her hands trembling as she clasped them together. "Sir, this is too much," she whispered. But Ibrahim shook his head. "It is only fair. Wealth means nothing if it cannot ease the burdens of others." Alina's heart swelled with emotions she could not put into words. She felt as though a door had opened to a world she never dared dream of. That night, as the stars glittered above the vast fields, she understood that sometimes a single act of kindness could echo louder than a lifetime of struggle. And for Ibrahim, the richest farmer in town, true treasure was no longer in gold or land but in the laughter and warmth of the girl who had once helped him across a crowded street.